Are you looking for a fun project for homemade decorations for the fall season? Or are you looking for a quick and easy project that you can make for friends and family or sell at a local market? If so, then this video is for you. Today we're going to see the step-by-step process to create this fun, easy project, so stay tuned if you want to see how we make this rustic style pumpkin. Also, be sure to check out the timestamps in the description of this video to jump to a specific portion. So if you're ready, let's get started. Alright, so before we get started with the actual process of making this, I just wanted to explain a little bit about this project and why I like it so much. So as you can see, it's a great looking pumpkin, and the nice thing about it is you can actually make this out of extra material that you have left over from other projects, and you don't need a lot of tools. Another thing that's nice about it is you can make varying sizes of the same project. So as you can see, we've got a different style of pumpkin here with a different style of stem. But today we're going to be making this one right here, and as you can see, it's the same process. All you're doing is just changing the size. And the one thing I also want to mention is we have another video coming out soon that we're going to show how to make this style of pumpkin as well. You can see it's got the same type of stem, but you'll notice the color on it is different because we use a black base coat. And so with the rustic look, you can have different styles based upon what look you're going for. And so stay tuned for the video about how to make this style pumpkin later. But again, we're going to go ahead and take a look at this process today. And so if you're ready, let's get started. All right, so the first thing we're going to start with is our 2x6. And what we're going to do is we're going to measure the length across the board, and then we're going to cut that in half because you want to have two equal sized parts. So what we're going to do is measure this, and we can see it comes out to about 16.5. So we're going to go about 8.25 for that halfway point. So 8.25 right there, boom. And I'm going to go ahead and use my speed square to mark off that midway point. So we come here. All right, so now we have 8.25 on this side, 8.25 on this side. So now I'm going to use my speed square and my circular saw to rip this board in half, and then we should have two equal sized parts. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so now we have two equal sized boards. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and measure out the notch that we want to have on each board so that ideally they should lock in like that. So I'm going to go ahead and mark these boards, and then I'll show you exactly what I mean. Okay, so what I did here was I went ahead and measured this, and I know that the entire length of the board is 8.25, and so I went ahead and marked this at 4 1/8. The reason for that is 4 1/8 inches is half of this board length. And then because I know that both of these boards are the same, now I can just transfer the line directly across, and it'll be the same exact portion on each board. All right, so now that we know where that halfway mark is, now I'm going to go ahead and measure the width of this right here, and I'm going to transfer that onto here because that's the notch that we're going to be cutting out of this board. All right, so what I did on this board is I went ahead and made a mark at the 2 3/4 inch line, and the reason for that is because this line now is in the direct center of this board, and so what that's going to help me to do is make sure that this board is centered. And the reason for that is because when I attach both portions together like that, I want to make sure that it's centered so it all locks in properly. So now what I'm going to do is do the same exact thing right here. Let's draw a guideline. I'll draw that line on this board as well. So now I've got lines on both boards to show exactly where the center is. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 2x6 and I'm going to go ahead and measure right here. So as you can see, it's about 1.5 inches wide. And so at about 3/4 of an inch, which is half of that, I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to draw a line. All right, now this might be a little bit of extra work that doesn't necessarily need to be done. I mean, you can even see my line is not directly straight. This is not as important to be accurate. This is just kind of like as a guideline so we know how to center this board. So basically what I'm going to do is just line up roughly where the center is, and now I'm going to go ahead and draw a line on each side of this board, and you'll see in a second why that's important. So this is what we're going to be cutting out, and I'm going to transfer the same exact thing onto this board as well. All right, so as you can see, we've now got matching portions that are gonna be cut out. And so the part with these squiggly lines right here, this is what we're gonna actually cut out of the wood. And then eventually, once that is missing, it'll almost be like a U shape, and both of these will lock in together just like that. All right, so you can see here's the first side. So now we're gonna go ahead and cut the other one and make it match this one. Let's go ahead and take care of that now. All right, so now we have the two pieces cut out. They look just like this. As you can see, the lines don't need to be super accurate, just as long as you get the meat out of that portion. So now what we're gonna do is we're actually going to join these together, just like that. And now you can see that it makes that X kind of shape. And so the idea that we're going for with this is that eventually we will turn it into something like this. So now the next thing we need to do is we need to cut these 45 degrees on all the sides of the pumpkin. And then that'll start taking shape a little bit more as we go. So let's go ahead and get that started. Okay, so the way we're gonna do this to determine how far we want the 45-degree angle to be cut is we're gonna take our tape measure, and we'll notice that it's about 2 inches from the center to the outside. And so I want to have about 3/4 of an inch from here to where the 45 degrees starts. So I'm going to measure 1/4 inch, or excuse me, 3/4 inch this way and this way. I'm going to do the same exact one on this side. And then once I have those lines, I'll go ahead and measure the 45. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so what I'm doing here is I'm using my speed square. I know that this is a 45-degree angle from this 90, and so I'm just using this 45-degree angle to measure from the line that I drew at the 3/4 inch and make that 45-degree angle line right here, just like that. So that's what I'm doing with this process. All right, so now what I'm gonna do for this top portion, I'm gonna make the same 45-degree markings on the top here that I did down here. I'm gonna use the same exact process. I'm just going to go from the outside and find that measurement, and then whatever that measurement is from here, I'm gonna make that same line here so I can draw the 45s and have all the 45-degree angles be the same. All right, so now that I've got all my corners here that I'm cutting off, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and get my circular saw and cut those off on each piece. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so as you can see, we've got our 45-degree cuts on each side. So now we're gonna do the same exact thing for this guy. All right, so now as you can see, we've got all the 45-degree cuts, and then when we put it together, you can see it's starting to take the shape of the pumpkin. All right, so now that we've got this kind of look like a pumpkin, what we need to figure out is which side we want the top or the bottom to be for the base. And so if I'm looking at this, it looks like we've got a little bit of gap here and here. And so I think this will be the top piece that goes down. That way it'll be towards the bottom. And then you won't really ever see too much of it. And then the thing that I really like about this project, I mean, you can see that there's a lot of imperfections on the wood and knots and everything, but I really like it because it gives a lot of characters. That's one thing to keep in mind for projects like this, is they're a lot of fun. It's really cool creating stuff, but also it gives a lot of character. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's the best part. So now that we've established that this is going to be the top piece, we need to go ahead and find a way to attach the stem of the pumpkin and figure out how we're going to do that. And so what I've got here is I've got a dowel. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut a portion off from the dowel, maybe about that long or so. And then I'm gonna use this dowel, they're 5/16 inch pins. I'm gonna drill a hole right into here and drill a hole right into here. I'll put the dowel pin in there, and then I'll put the and then I'll put the stem with the hole in it on top of that. And so that we'll be able to attach the stem to the actual pumpkin. So let's go ahead and see how we do that. All right, so we've got the wood pumpkin here, and now we've got our stem. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my 5/16 inch drill bit. I'm gonna drill just in the center of the stem, and I'm gonna drill right in the center of the pumpkin top, and that way we can attach our stem. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so what I did was I took my 5/16 inch drill bit and I went ahead and used painter's tape to mark off how deep I want to drill into the stem. And that way I won't go too deep to where it'll be loose fitting, but that way I've got enough of the actual drill bit going in so it can be secured to that dowel. And what I'm gonna do is I put it in reverse so that I can just drill a little starter hole. You can also use a punch if you want to start exactly and accurately where you want to drill, but I don't have my punch easily at my disposal, so I'm just going to go ahead and do a little reverse drill real quick. Now you can see it did a little starter hole there, nothing too crazy. Again, it doesn't need to be perfectly accurate because we're just doing this for fun, but let's go ahead and start this now. Now as you can see, we did drill our hole, and let's see how this fits. Looks good. We've got a little bit of a gap there, so I'm gonna go just a little bit deeper. All right, so let's see how it fits. Looks pretty snug. There's still a little bit of a gap, so maybe I'll go just a little bit deeper with that, but it looks good as it is right now. All right, let's see. It looks like third time is a charm, so you can see it's a nice tight fit there. So now once we get it all put together, you can see it's starting to look somewhat like a pumpkin. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and get started with the staining of everything. So we're gonna use a wood stain on the actual stem, and then we're going to be using just a orange colored paint for the rest of the pumpkin body. So let's go ahead and jump into that now. All right, so for the stem, this is very simple. I actually just use gloves and just kind of like smear it on. I know what you're thinking I shouldn't be reaching into the actual can, but this is literally all I use this stain for. It's just for little projects like this, so not a big deal. Just a very simple process, and it's already getting a nice brown color, so maybe just a little bit more. And just kind of smear it all around on there. All right, so now we have this orange paint that we're going to be using. And so I'm going to be using a very non-traditional method when I'm painting all this. I'm literally just gonna kind of pour some paint on and spread it around. The reason for that is because we're gonna actually sand down all the paint to give it that rustic look later. And so this is not as big of a deal for painting purposes. All right, so we got a little bit of wind, so sorry if you can't hear me very well. Now it looks like the paint has dried. So we got the stem put on here. Now we're just gonna slide these pieces together. And as you can see, we've now got our quick little pumpkin. If you like the look of it with the actual paint on there, you can always feel free to just keep it orange like that. I like the rustic look when I make these, so I'm gonna go ahead and take this apart, and I'm just gonna sand this down. So what I'm using is, I'm just gonna use my Orbital sander, and then I'm using a 120 grit. I'm not sure if you can read that on there, but it's 120 grit sandpaper for my Orbital sander. So let's go ahead and get started and see how it looks. All right, so as you can see, we've got a little bit of a rustic look to it now. On this part, we sanded down just a little bit extra to give it more of a rustic look. And then we did the same thing here, and I like how the grain really pops. So just to give an idea of what it looked like before and after, this is the unsanded side, and this is what the sanded side looks like. So again, it's your preference, whatever you want it to look like, but I'm gonna go ahead and finish this up, and then let's see what the final product looks like. All right, so we've got our pieces, and as you can see, the rustic feel turned out really nice. One thing I do want to show is a little mistake happened. So if you look right here while I was sanding it, a little bit of a chunk came off, but that's completely fine. It kind of adds to the character of the rustic look. So that's why I love doing these rustic projects, is because there's no way that you can go without making some mistakes. And even if you do make mistakes, that's fine. There's just a quick fix. So I'm gonna go ahead and piece everything together, and then let's see what the final product looks like. So I'm gonna take that stem, I'm just gonna plug it right there on that dowel. And now when we put these two pieces together, as you can see, we've now got our rustic pumpkin.